I also think the James Ward-Prowse argument, I mean, what does Phillips do that James Ward-Prowse can't do? I like Phillips, by the way. Decent player. Good player. But Ward-Prowse gives you more. And he can play that role with a blindfold on.
It's interesting, though, isn't it, that we sort of seem to jump straight away, despite the fact that we've beaten Italy twice in qualification, we've won the group with 2 games to spare, that we jump on the pessimistic angles. There was a brilliant little paraphrase. Everybody. There's a brilliant phrase in the article by Martin Samuel today. Okay, well, Danny was a little bit pessimistic.
No, you asked me. Are you pessimistic, Danny?
I think our firepower is so good that we can give any team a game in the world, and in the Euros.
What do you think? Do you think because Danny's talked about caution about the defensive setup is being pessimistic, or is it constructive observations? When we're playing against better opposition,
a better finish from a doggy. We're in 2 down.
Yeah, I don't think that's pessimism. I think that's a bit of realism. I think we've got to look at the situation where he's quite right. The Italians had opportunities that possibly other sides that were a bit more formidable might have taken. I think there's lots to be optimistic about. I think we have an opportunity to win this Euros. We should be pricing it into our thinking. Whether I think Gareth Southgate has that switch at that moment when decisions are put upon him, we will see. If he doesn't do it now, he'll never do it because he's had 3 opportunities to learn the lessons where he hasn't made changes. But technically, factually, spiritually, and in every other way we want to look at it, England are in the box seat to have a real chance to win this European Championships. And they should be pricing it into their thinking. I know that he talks in a very sensible and pragmatic fashion, Gareth Southgate, about finishing the group to get the top seedings. Well, let's win the rest of the games because that's the job we have in hand.
Yeah, that's what he wants to do.
And the other thing, I'm talking about other players in case we do have a scenario where Phillips and Maguire don't get the game time or don't leave in January. He's going to have to maybe start thinking of who would be next. I mean, as of now, Henderson would be the person he would play, which he's shown in the last 2 games, if Phillips ain't playing. I think we have to start looking a bit. Even someone like Longstaff hasn't had a chance. He's been sensational for 12 months now. Now, some people might say he's not quite got the creativity, fine, but when you've got people like Rico Lewis and Ward-Prowse, that you have got options. And then at the back, if Maguire doesn't play, I think Gay's done enough to show that he's more than capable. He's quick, he's comfortable on the ball, 2-footed. We've got player tomorrow.
It's right.
Lewis Dunk.
You made the observation about Kalvin Phillips seeking out minutes. I'm sure he's been seeking out minutes since he walked through the door.
Well,
he's not getting them. And he needs to move from Manchester City.
Yes, but that's the key thing, isn't it? Whereas before he was sort of suggesting that he was going to stay and he's going to fight for his place. He's now come out with a quote which says, "I've got to try and make sure I'm ready for whatever. The thing I want is minutes. I have to go and get them if I want to go to the Euros."
Well, this is it. It's one thing. I mean, people talked about his performance
almost
yesterday.
Accepting that he's going to have to move on.
Well, he can't do anything else but price it into his conversation, can he? He can't do anything else but talk about it because it's the one thing, rather than spend all our time and rather than the journalists that are interviewing him after the game spending all their time praising his performance, the default setting is to go in about the level of minutes he's got on Man City because it's there to be asked. So he's got to look at that in real terms and assume that it's one thing playing in individual games. It's another thing tournament football with momentum and fitness and awareness and match fitness and match sharpness and awareness, like he talked about himself, hanging a leg out and being in that sort of frame of mind where you are at it, on it, across it because you're playing regularly. If he goes into a tournament having played very little minutes during the course of the season, I think that you'll find out some of the shortcomings that you'll see from a player that hasn't played all the minutes in individual games.
Well, we even saw last night. He was a little bit late with a couple of tackles, wasn't he, Kalvin Phillips?
Well, he should have been sent. He should have been sent off.
That was because he didn't
have
have the minutes under his belt, and he was a bit rusty.
Yeah, look, when we talk about players at this level, that we know their talents and we know their strengths, but I think it would be remiss not to talk about the other players who play those positions and talk about their strengths ahead of them. Phillips at the moment is not playing better than James Ward-Prowse, and he's not playing better than Rico Lewis.
So why do you think then? Do you
because
think
Gareth sees Phillips as he's talked about. He uses the words pivots and double pivots, which anyway, he thinks that Phillips gives them more defensive stability and tactical nous in that position than Ward-Prowse or Rico Lewis would.
And is he right or is he wrong?
In my opinion, he's wrong, because I've seen Ward-Prowse play that position many, many times, and he's as disciplined as they come in terms of tracking runners and spotting danger. He can do all of it. I mean, but he gives you better set plays, he gives you a chance of a goal and creativity.
Where have you seen that, Dan? Have you seen that in a Southampton side that was floundering last year?
For years, Ward-Prowse has played all over different midfield positions.
But in a Southampton side that was floundering?
Yeah, but we're talking about his defensive capabilities. He's never, ever been seen wanting for defensive capability.
In a Southampton side that conceded goals for fun and was floundering? I mean, I'm not being difficult.
One season.
Again, but
where he was the best player.
He's only been an international player for one season, hasn't he? When you think about it, 18 months, 2 years, Ward-Prowse has been on the international scene. So when you're looking at his, I mean, we argue about whether Gareth actually looks at domestic form, because sometimes he doesn't seem to. But if you make this argument about Ward-Prowse's ability to do something, and you put him in a team that hasn't been able to do it, and a team that's been relegated and that has ultimately failed because of his defensive failings, and a very short period of time at West Ham, it doesn't seem to have a body of work to stand that up, whereas Kalvin Phillips does at international level.
Because of one tournament.
I guess, yeah.
Kalvin Phillips never played a full Premier League season for anybody.
Okay.
He's been injured for Leeds. Never played a full season in the Premier League. And you're comparing...
I'm asking.
No, sorry, not you. We're comparing him to another player, Ward-Prowse, who's played in the Premier League for, 6 years maybe?
Do you see Ward-Prowse that way? In my mind's eye,
what do you see him? He's not a 10.
I don't see him in that way.
I don't see him as a defensive midfield player.
No, neither do I.
And I think that's why,
what is he?
I think he's more of an 8, isn't he?
I'm asking you.
Yeah, I think he's more of an. I think he plays a little bit further forward. I'm not saying that he can't play in that position, but against the higher grade opposition, I think Gareth believes that he hasn't got the same level of quality as Kalvin Phillips. If Kalvin Phillips was 100%
defensively,
when push comes to shove, yeah.
Well, that's where I'm saying I disagree completely. I think he's more than capable.
And I think he's got
the other thing with the Phillips
weapons going forward, which means he doesn't rely on
James
Ward-Prowse
for
creativity.
The other thing, when you think back to the Euros where Phillips really played well, he wasn't sitting next to Rice the whole game. He was pressing and going further ahead at times.
Well, his creativity, for example, in the
he was better.
Game,
he was sharp.
The door.
If Phillips is playing all the time, of course I'm in the squad. What I'm saying is, if he's not playing, then we've got to look at the other options.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the TalkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. TalkSPORT.